How are you feeling, Josh, about this new setup here for doing the podcasts?
I like the bigger open table. I think we should get some gun builds out here.
I think that's what we'll have to do. Kind of walk through some different gun builds. Maybe we'll get to the one that we're going to build for Eden out here and just step through why this is good for a 9-year-old and
yeah, and even the action you're going to choose for that.
Yeah,
the versatility on that action. You can screw on a barrel for yourself and go shoot it, and then you're going to chamber a 223 for her. Yeah, and that switch bolt face design and that origin action, it's pretty slick for doing
just
that.
Keeps you pretty flexible. So she can kind of start out at that 223 and then graduate up to something bigger, and then even if we want to spin a short little 300 blackout barrel for the Illinois deer game here.
Yeah, or if Scott wants a 7 PRC to go on an elk hunt.
That's right. Exactly.
Do that too,
Exactly. So we were kind of trying to discuss before what we were going to talk about today. And I mean, fortunately in reloading and gun builds, there's lots of different topics. But one of the things that when we first kind of met and got involved, I mean, it was like, hey, Josh is shooting PRS. He's shooting really well. And, we're going to kind of migrate into using some Forster tools. So what are you shooting?
Yeah.
25 by 47.
Yeah, that's what I've shot a lot of the last couple of years is the 25s. Started with 25 GT, then 25 by 47, sprinkling some 6.5. And then now kind of been shooting 6 GT again. But the 25 by 47's been the main one. Right. And I know when I first came on, I don't think we didn't have any dies for that. And that was like the first thing I asked, like, can you guys make a standard 25 by 47 die? Because that's what I'm wanting to run.
Right. So. But initially, the way we'd set you up was through kind of how we would direct most people when they're trying to wildcat something, because that would technically be what that is. It's a wildcat. You're converting something from something else. So I thought maybe today we just kind of discuss, why, what are some advantages to wildcatting? Why would someone do it? And then just even kind of through the tools aspect of, what's needed to do different things, because a wildcat can be, something as simple as like that. The standard cartridge is 6 by 47. Is it 6 or 6.5? Which is
I took it from 6.5 and back down, right. So you could do it either way. And I've actually done it both ways.
But I think it's been long enough now. I think the standard only brass you could get was 6.5 by 47 always, and you'll never potentially, never see some brasses in some of those that are so close because it's so easy to neck them down and change them to
whatever. They're just not, common enough, when I first got into the 25 train, I was taking that 25 GT, I was taking 6 GT brass and necking it up to 25, and 25 GT was never even a head stamped cartridge anywhere. Right. No brass manufacturer made it. I reached out to Alpha or someone like that. Just, hey, you got good 6 GT brass here. What do you think about doing a 25? And kind of the response as well, doesn't have a lot of traction. We don't see a point in it. Well, guess what? There's 25 GT Alpha brass now. Yeah. So,
yeah, it's those hand loaders and shooters that can really create that movement then by converting this from this to that. And so it can be as simple as that you're changing a bullet diameter from a standard cartridge to almost as complicated as what it used to be when people were doing 300 blackouts and you're cutting 223s down and there's in places where there's never been shoulders and things like that. So I guess what attracted you to going to the 25s at the time? Why not just shoot the 6 or the 6.5 that were out there? Yeah,
it was kind of that perfect balance between going slower, like the 6.5s, they have the higher BC bullet. And you're going a little bit slower so you get more time to see that shot. And with the higher BC bullet, you don't need to run it as fast and you're getting the same wind advantage. So similarly, same as going, up from 6, it's a higher BC bullet. It's a little slower. You get more time to see it, but it's not quite the push that a 6.5 gives off. So that's kind of where that 25 splits the difference between the two. And Berger came out with that 135 with a heck of a BC on it. I know there's other companies now too. Hornady's got the A-tip out, and then Sierra brought back the 131. That was originally like the Blackjack, which was really the hot bullet back years ago for 25 cal long range stuff. So it's really just kind of splitting the difference between, you know, getting that higher BC, but not quite the recoil of the 6.5s.
Yeah. And I think, you know, you saw people doing the same things with like the Creedmoors at the time, you know, right when 6.5 came out. I think everybody has an idea, well, they could do this a little better. And then, boy, the ones that stick, then you see them come out as just standard standard Sammy cartridges.
Yeah.
Then,
and, you know, it's really, you know, you can say, oh, it's a BC thing and a win thing, but really you run a heavy 6.5 in the 2600s. You run a heavy 25 in the 2700s. You run a 6 in the high 28s. Like you actually punch the numbers. It all adds up. It's all pretty darn close. But another benefit that 25 can give over the 6 too is just that little bit bigger bullet signature. Either on plate or if you miss, seeing that in the dirt, the splash is going to be a little bit more explosive and bigger than a 6. And a lot of times, you know, you get heavy Mirage and some of these bigger plates at 1,000 yards with a little 6. Some guys may miss a call when you actually hit that target because it just does not move that big plate at all. Where that 25, now we're getting into a bigger bullet. You get a little more rock of the plate, maybe catch splash easier. So that's kind of also another reason to think about doing the 25.
Right. Gets you, you know, and that, you know, someone like yourself that will run at times at the top of the pack. It's that seeing that one miss and reading that one right that could make a world of difference in the end of the match.
Every point matters, and you miss one or miss seeing one, and you're not sure what to do on the next one. Now you drop a second one because you didn't see it. Well, that's potentially 1 or 2 points there that makes a huge difference at the end of the weekend. Right. You know, if that happens a few times throughout the weekend. Right. Well, there's your difference in first and, you know, 10th. Yeah.
So when you first got into the 25s, then, I mean, I know you weren't really with Forster at the time. What were you working with an off the shelf 25 die to make that happen?
Yeah, I think SAC at the time was making a 25 by 47 die, bushing die that I was using. And then when I came to Forster and started shooting for Forster and everything, we did the 6.5 by 47 bushing die and just put the appropriate bushing in it.
Right.
And then replaced the expander ball as well for the 25.
Yep. So that, I mean, I think bushing die is really the kind of increase in availability of those has really opened up the ability for more the average Joe to Wildcat and do some of those changes within some reason, because you're not, you know, like the difference between 257 and 264. It's a lot when you look at the bore size of a barrel, but when you're talking about moving brass and stuff, you're just that 7,000ths difference to be able to make that change. It's not a huge, a change of a bushing. You can do that then.
Now, so we get this question a lot, and maybe this is something you want to go into detail on and explain to these guys. So I always get asked, like, hey, I have a 22 Creedmoor bushing full length sizer.
Yep.
Can I use that? Now I'm going to shoot 6 Creed.
Right.
Well, you're going up in caliber. So the way our die is designed, you technically cannot do that. However, if you have a 6 Creedmoor bushing die and you want to shoot a 22 and neck down, we can do that with the proper bushing. But why is it we can't go up?
Yeah, good point. No, and truth be told, you probably could go up, but you're going to work that brass more than you need to, because you're going to have to do it with an expander and not really set the bushing, because the shoulder bump is built into the die itself. And because we're wanting to really limit, one of the downsides of, or potential downsides of a bushing die is you're leaving a small area left unsized. So the potential of getting a donut or something in that neck shoulder junction is a little more possible. So what we do in that design of our bushing die, where it's pushing the shoulder back, we really try to hug that pretty close to what the brass would then be going into it. So if it's 22, that diameter is X. So if I go to run a 6 millimeter through there, it's not really the bushing that's going to size. It's going to start sizing that before it comes in. So you're wanting it to be bigger. You're already starting to size it smaller in that standard full length bushing die.
Right.
And then the other thing when you're looking at Forster specifically is that ability to seat the bullet. So you've got, like you said, that example, you've got a 22 Creedmoor die set. Hey, I just got the 6 Creedmoor. Your 22 Creedmoor bullet seater isn't going to work on the 6 Creedmoor.
Yep. Because
we have that in that spring-loaded die chamber of there. We've got that really tight tolerance bullet channel in the top that's 0.5 thousandths over the bullet diameter. So your 22 Creedmoor, it's 0.2245. Well, a 0.243 bullet is never going to make it through that channel.
Yep. And this is specific to our dies, especially like the bushing, sizing die, how that's set up. So don't be like, oh, I can do this on, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about our dies here.
Right.
And why we're limited on, and why we wanted to design, why you can't go technically bigger.
Yeah.
Is for that more support there.
Yep.
And yeah.
So like you said then, so if I want to go to 6 Creedmoor and I have a 6.5 Creedmoor bushing die and seating die, well, that'll very likely work just fine in there. And because when we talked about that, talking about the sizing die, now at that juncture, it's opened up more. So we've got clearance for that 6 in there. And then in the bullet seater, that bullet channel is 264.5. So your 243 bullet will pass in there. You do lose a little bit of the advantage of that support in the bullet channel because now we've got that little bit smaller bullet passing through that little bit larger bullet channel. But you're still gaining the support of the case off the chamber, and that stem will be small enough. It'll actually hit a little lower on the bullet, closer to the major diameter when it goes to seat it. So that can kind of help somewhat with the concentricity. You're running kind of a hybrid between a standard seater and an inline seater that way. You're supporting the case, but your bullet's not as supported as it was before.
Right. Yep.
So,
or simply, you can they call us up and order a sleeve, right? A seater sleeve and a stem, and just replace their existing to upgrade it?
Yep. Yeah, you sure could. And usually it's
and when I meant that sleeve, the chamber sleeve there, the sliding piece inside the die is actually ream cartridge specific. So.
Yep. And the big thing then is to keep in mind, whenever you change a bullet diameter, then you're going to have to change the seating stem if you want that same support in there. Yep. So now you made this 25. Well, now your 6.5 stem's not going to fit in that channel of that new chamber that you got, which if you talk to Josh, talk to me, we know that we're going to not let you do that on accident, not have something that goes together incorrectly. But some of it too is within some reason. So like, let's say you wanted to do a 25 PRC. Well, we don't make anything that's smaller currently than a 6.5 PRC in terms of a bullet channel. So it gets to be a little more difficult as far as how quickly we can do that. If we're taking something smaller, making it bigger, we can do that way faster because we're opening up a bullet channel, adding an expander, opening a neck up. Those types of things can be done. We do those on the weekly. Mm-hmm. So it's not a really hard thing for us to do. So I'd say I probably kind of overcomplicated that with some of the numbers and things that are there. So, feel free, nice thing in the podcast, rewind, listen to me, say it 3 times. It still doesn't make sense. Call me and I'll say it a 4th time. Yeah. But
I just wanted to get the point across that going up,
right,
it is totally acceptable and able to do with our die. Going down may give you issues.
Correct. Correct. Yep. When you're especially looking at a bushing die and things trying to do that. And, we get what we've been talking now about is the fairly simple movements of things. We're just changing neck diameters on a standard cartridge that's there. We haven't changed any body diameters. Whenever someone gets into some of that stuff, it gets a little more wonky under our manufacturing system, because we like to cut all our sizing dies, cedar dies with one-piece reamers. So if you change a shoulder diameter, well, now we're changing we'd almost have to have that properly. So, just kind of hedging some of that of, you've got a dream for saying that Forster's not going to be able to help make that happen, but, quickly, efficiently, priced right, that's where, when we do some major changes, they get, like everything else, it gets more expensive.
Yeah.
If you're just getting a new washing machine and not changing the whole laundry room size, fits under the same price structure difference there.
Yeah.
But our dies have done, so like before the 25s came out, and really all you were getting was like 6.5 by 47 brass. To just run that already 6.5 brass through a 6 millimeter sizing die, it really worked just fine, worked quite well. Even though you're moving 20 thousandths of brass there, I think us having that slightly elevated expander and maybe even that ability to hone the die out to limit that amount of working of the brass, anytime that you're going to try to Wildcat or do anything reloading and you can do it in one step, that's a time saver. And we've that I really think that having that expander ball higher in our dies, more in that shoulder sizing area, makes the ability to do some of these Wildcats and moving brass a little bit more, a little more efficient, a little less likely to, anytime we move brass a lot, the opportunity of having something be not concentric is there, and we really try to limit that in that design. Yeah. So, and then there's things like the more Wildcats, like when people were chopping off 300 blackout, 223 brass and sizing it, and us having that elevated expander in that, you could take that sawed off piece and run it through one time and it was pretty well ready to go. I mean, there was lots of other headaches and tragedies in making that movement, but thank goodness there's brass out there now for things like that.
Yeah.
You were talking, you had a customer, call not that long ago about a rifle build, and you were kind of overheard you kind of push him to a Wildcat, like a 25 PRC. I guess.
He's got an old Weatherby. He wants rebarreled. It's a 257. He wants to stay with a 25 cal bullet, and we were just talking about the build and pricing out some things, the barrel. Are we sticking with this cartridge or not? And I just told him my only downside is, that being an older cartridge design, it's not that I can't order or design a custom reamer for that specifically.
Right.
But I said, another, the new good cartridge that's already designed around the longer, heavier bullets you want to shoot. That's already out there. And I actually got sitting in the toolbox at home. It's a 25 PRC, still a Magnum bolt face. Everything will transfer nice. And instantly it's like, ooh, I like the sounds of that. Yeah, let's maybe go that route. So, it's simply a 6.5 PRC body, neck down to 25 cal.
Yeah. And that's, a person wants to do some of that. Like I'm assuming someone like him that's had that Weatherby for a long time, might be kind of hesitant to go down that Wildcat route. And that's where, just in terms of how am I going to get ammunition for it? What am I going to do? And those are questions that we're more than happy to answer, because it's not like that.
I mean, it sounded like an experienced reloader.
Yep.
Or experienced enough. And, He's like, yeah, I reload. And so
yeah,
that wasn't an issue there. You know,
getting him to step that brass down isn't going to be that big a deal for him.
Yep.
We've kind of jokingly always talked about ourselves at SHOT Show and stuff, and trying to develop our own like Forster Man cartridge. And I guess I say that just to kind of get into, you know, the reasons we've been given so far as why would someone want a Wildcat are really to take advantage of ballistics here and this there. But we kind of forget about the, you know, silly reasons of wanting to just do something kind of off the wall, crazy. And there's definitely those things out there where, isn't it a Psalm cartridge or something that you run for your coyotes with?
Yeah, I shoot a 6 Psalm for coyotes.
Yeah.
That's pretty silly.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
105s at like 3,400 feet a second. That's, I think the whap hitting them is louder than the rifle going off. But
so, I mean,
especially running suppressed, I mean, it's pow.
You didn't really, you know, work something like that up to be that, hey, I'm going to run 2,000 rounds through this barrel at a match.
No.
It was specifically because you wanted it to just...
I was like, man, if I get 3 coyote seasons out of it, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't really care. I just wanted to see what it could do.
Yep.
So pushing, you know, 100+ grain bullets at speed is just, it's, you know, you use the term laser beam. That's pretty close to it right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a person shouldn't, you know, you want to do some of that with some caution, because now, you know, you're a really pretty experienced reloader. It's not me saying take your 338 Lapua and neck it down to 22 caliber and just let's go see what happens.
Right.
You know, but there's some things, some limits that the market itself won't necessarily allow you to do or have the reason to do, because it's not something that could be mass quantity done. And that could be a really cool reason to Wildcat and, you know, work with your gunsmith on different things that could be done there, or things to watch out for. But I would sure encourage, if anybody listens to this that wants to float us out what would be the really good Forster Man cartridge.
Yeah, and I think we were thinking something from 22 cal to 7 mil. I think we were pretty heavy in that 6 to 7 mil, really.
Yeah.
We had a few ideas, but
I know you were really, you know, you kind of one of the 25 guys out there. So we were, you know, I think it was at a match or something. You were shooting your 25 by 47, and I messaged, well, why isn't there a 25-08 out there? You know, you've got the 7, the 260, you know, you've got all these other variations of it. And
well, then you search the internet enough, and someone's done it.
That's I guess kind of the point I'm making, is like, if likely whatever you're going to come up with is not uber groundbreaking, someone has done it.
Yeah.
So
then to put a twist on it, it's like, well, let's do a 25-08 Ackley improved.
Right.
Well, someone's probably done that.
Someone's done it.
But that still sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my last thoughts were. But like Scott said, you guys got something wild or want to see something that the internet hasn't done yet.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can do it.
Yeah, if we can do it, then we'll
cut
dies, cut some rifles for it.
We could
It'll
probably
be a good
tickle
time.
Peterson enough to get us to make some brass for it or something. At least one run. But.
Yeah. Oh, that's probably the hardest part. We'll probably just have to make a die to form it, I think, whatever it is. But you know, that I really think there's been a lot of cartridge development that has been probably pretty well founded off of, you know, individual customers, reloaders trying to make something happen that they're not getting out of it currently.
Guys just like to tinker too.
They do.
That's most of it. I mean,
I've always, there's people that like to, you know, there's people that reload to shoot, and there's people that shoot to reload, and thank God we have both, really, because it sends us down a lot of different avenues. So again, just we're kind of at a spot where encourage people to throw some of those ideas out at us, and let's see. You know, there for a while back, I believe there was a SHOT Show. We had a lot of people asking about it. Seems like if there's an article or something that comes out in say hand loader or something else, that drives a lot of demand. There was a lot of like 6mm 204 a few SHOT Shows ago, hummingbirds coming out about that. And yeah, I'm kind of excited now to see what people come up with for us to look at. So one thing we'd when we were kind of debating topics to come into, whether to look at wildcatting, and one of the other topics we kind of had in mind that I think we could go a lot more in depth with is kind of some of that on the bench maintenance things. And I wonder, just kind of, if we almost tease it a little bit for like what the next one would be, if you had to like high level give some people some things that, since you've been sitting in that tech desk that you've seen, what would you give them as far as some common mistakes people have, or any maintenance tips that you have kind of off the gate? If I'm going to start out, it would be kind of just knowing that you need to clean your dies every once in a while, and especially knowing, and that probably trickles down to people's rifles as well. And
and how dirty that brass is, and
right. And so, especially when, trying to loop this back into what we're talking about with wildcatting, I mean, lube, it's some of these things that we're going to do. It's going to take a hefty amount of good quality case lube in there to do it. And what I've seen is a lot of dyes people that'll use like the wax lubes. That stuff can just build up in your dye so fast and hold up to so much stuff. It's not me here saying don't ever use a wax lube, but boy, clean your dye out every once in a while if you're using that kind of lube, for sure.
Yeah. Well, especially when you first get them, we dip them in that like preservative waxy film type stuff. So that getting that out of there is first thing first.
Right.
Like you said, as far as cleaning and maintenance, it really depends on how dirty the brass is going into it, as far as how many reloads that may be required.
Right.
I feel like I'm maybe guilty and don't clean mine enough, but mine always looks pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I could even put a number on it. Maybe it's
some guys can't.
Some guys it might be a couple hundred. For me, I feel like I pull it apart at about 1,000 and just wipe it quick. Like, I usually have some of that soot from the lube and carbon right up around especially around the expander ball, and then right at the top where the neck ends. But a quick, twirl with the paper towel fixes that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the amount I use mine too, that it's always getting some form of lubrication. But man, we get some dyes in that are just pitted and rusty.
Right.
It's like either they're in a terrible environment, maybe get a dehumidifier in that room.
Yeah.
Or it's just the lack of pure use. It's that old. They've used it a few times.
Yeah.
Kind of have some corrosive material in there. Well, then it sits for 5 years, and they use it once a year.
Yeah.
It's like my stuff's just year round, constantly working. So
right.
I don't know if that's the difference there, but
no, I think you're hitting on something there. And like I said, mainly just kind of wanting to tease it for the next time. I think we'll kind of go more in depth for sure on, hey, when you get your dyes, this is what you should do. This is what you should look for. This is how it should be checked to set up. But like you said, like the environment, I know we had a really good distributor, pro staff members that were BRT in Australia. We're in the Midwest here, but you say you've got a lot of precision polished metal tools and you're living right on the coast where that salty ocean's crashing up against I know they had some crazy things that how quick some of that stuff can turn on a person if you're not managing it. So maybe I'll reach out to Stuart and Annie and see what extreme advice they have in that that preservation for that. But we kind of talked to if we go beyond kind of looping back ourselves to the wildcatting a little bit, you know, we're talking mainly about forming necks, but you brought up the Ackley and kind of even that forming shoulders and things. You know, Forster, we don't make like a hydroform die or anything like that, but you know, it's pretty common practice, or definitely was, for things like 6-dasher and stuff to do some fire forming and stuff like that. And again, that might be another good episode for us to kind of go, you know, bring someone in that has done a lot of that hydro forming and stuff. But if you're not familiar,
I've never actually never even shot like a BRA or a dasher myself.
Okay.
Have customers, obviously, hey, you set up the chamber this way, and they're just firing that brass and it's growing to that wall. And now you have essentially a different angle of a case.
You're taking that, I believe 30-degree shoulder and changing it into a 40.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly all depends on what
cartridge you're using. But
so.
that's the pretty common, you know, Ackley thing. So there's definitely, I guess, in short, some other ways to form your brass beyond a die initially. And
some of them guys have reported their fire form loads shoot amazing, you know, better than their resized stuff after it's been fire formed. So
yeah,
it's just interesting. Always something different.
Yeah. You know, we recently were trying to, you know, thinking of another reason to wildcat. We've been, you know, a person can look up like that 30 whitetail. You've got the kind of friend of yours or acquaintance that's kind of working on that, and they're kind of trying to come up with a solution to because I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Illinois deer hunting logs. Which,
I mean, do we want to brief them on that?
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah,
I mean,
so obviously Illinois deer regs. I don't want to say it word for word because I'll probably get something wrong. But essentially, it was a straight wall cartridge, 30 cal or bigger, and then they also allow bottleneck if the overall case length is less than 1.4 inches. Well, really, it's like what a BR is the only thing that's short, you know?
Right.
And I don't even think that's short enough. I think that's like 1.5. I don't quote me on these numbers. So anyway, this guy wanted to basically develop a cartridge and I mean, this is 100% Wildcat. So be 30 caliber, 1.4 inches max length. And I think those are the two main requirements. Then he's got obviously he needs dies for it. So he reached out to me. And then they're working right now on getting, you have to have another law is, which game wardens don't hunt me down, but you have to have a factory manufactured type production.
Someone has to make
ammo,
it.
right? So they're working on that right now. Anyway, this cartridge, he took a 6BR, blew it out to BRA, so it's Ackley improved. Well, then he went and cut the neck down like whatever it took to get it down to that 1.400.
So those BRs have quite a bit of neck.
Yeah, a BR is super long.
Yep.
So it's a BRA with like a dasher length neck. So it's super kind of, it's almost like a dasher and a BR.
Right.
But kept the shoulder length of the BR, or just made, you know, the angle change. It didn't grow that 80th thou that a dasher does.
Yeah.
So it's same base to shoulder essentially as a BRA. Neck length of a dasher, or possibly even a hair shorter. And then mandreled out to 30 caliber.
Yeah.
And so it's a short, stubby, cute little thing. I think he's shooting 120, 130 grain bullets out of it, getting great results. But he's really pushing that hard. So that's 30 whitetail is what he's calling it.
Yeah.
So
to me, it just was kind of a cool illustration of, like, you know, why, you know, how some things are created. Sometimes there was a constraint of X, and things like you say, the only real shouldered cartridge that fit into this whole scenario was like 300 blackout, which which was not designed to be a deer gun necessarily, you know, not saying that it can't do a good job or whatever, but he, you know, gentleman kind of saw the pitfalls and what that could be, saw some opportunity and what it could. And gosh, I just might have to cut one myself to do it. And
that might convince me to start deer hunting again.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of, you know, that's not necessarily, maybe it will, but that's going to be a huge market outside of Illinois and these constraints, but it certainly could be. But, you know, to me, it was just like a prime story of not just necking down something for fun, trying to make something that would solve whether it's a actual problem or non-existing problem, but more likely more of an actual problem, you know, and within a demand. So kind of a neat. Stay tuned on that as we kind of try to help get something developed for him to be able to do it, because like there, he's really working within some already pre-made conditions, you know, so we're able to use some pre-existing tooling, you know, use a BRA reamers and necking some things up to 30 caliber. I mean, it's kind of, it's going to be its own run of things, but kind of some, you know, he obviously was thinking of some of the other constraints that were out there in terms of what brass are people going to be able to use and what dyes and stuff are going to be able to be out there to do it, and what bullet's going to work in that short of a neck and do the job of bringing those Illinois whitetails down efficiently. Yeah. So yeah, stay tuned on that. And I'm really looking forward to some comments on this one of what could that Forster Man cartridge be.
Yeah.
So thanks, Josh.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Wildcat on, I guess.
Yeah. Barn cats.
Yeah. Barn cats. Yeah.